You're funny.
Thank you.
You're really funny. That's extraordinary. I mean, you say all of these things and people just laugh.
What did I miss most? What do you disagree with most, Peter, in what I said?
I unfortunately don't disagree with you. I think what I'd love to do is actually take your ideas a decade out.
Oh, wow.
Right, because I think the biggest challenge is the ability to predict the future from here is getting very murky. We talked this morning about the singularity, and there's all of these singularities happening. One of the things you hit on that I fully agree, I think universities are going to implode. I think the idea that you go to university to learn something today, it's really a socialization function, but I think paying these ridiculous fees are going to go away. And so universities are going to implode. High schools have to be, the teachers' unions are going to have to deal with the fact that we need to reinvent education.
Well, what we found is a student with AI is learning between 2 to 6 times faster than sitting in a classroom. That impedance mismatch is going to crack everything.
Yeah,
what do teachers think about this right now? Has anybody spoken to a teacher? You're a teacher?
All right, 10 years out, go.
So 10 years out, I was up at visiting NeoGamma yesterday at 1X Technologies, and I am getting a robot by the end of the year. And I think we're going to start to see these infiltrate the home and be something that's just fundamentally accepted and sort of disappear into the background of our world, right? So I think for women who are having to battle between pregnancy and helping bring up a child and also have their career go and all of these, it's not fair for them. So what if robots are able to support, in a fashion that gives them the freedom to have their full careers and be a parent when they want to instead of anything else?
That's an interesting second one.
So this is an area that Peter and I deeply disagree with.
About the robots?
The robots. Why? Because I think it's going to take a lot longer. It's going to be a while before I'm comfortable having a robot change the diaper on a baby.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
But they'll clean it.
That bedside lamp thing that you showed was insane. Because I couldn't sleep at night having those things.
Well, yeah, no. It also stabs you. Like the knives aren't that big.
If there's a bug in the system and it just goes, oh, let me just go fold a human, that's going to be a problem.
And by the way, ma'am, you're getting the first question.
What we've seen is when we have a breakthrough innovation, it takes about 19 years to get to full deployment. We saw that with autonomous cars. We saw that with lots of things. I think humanoid robots will take about 15 years to get into play.
What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Or build on it?
I mean, look, I think the difference I would say is you're talking about the consumer consumption of robots.
Yes.
And I think the industrial consumption,
massive.
The industry, whether it's the warehouse, factory, but even in the commercial environments, like restaurants and all that. And that's where, by the way, I think one of the things that you did not get right, you didn't necessarily get wrong, because I don't think you went forward, you only went backward, is looking at what's happening with employment and looking at the question of men. We can talk about men and why college might be better for women than men. But the idea that men who do not have a college education are going to have good employment in a world in which we have robotics that are taking all those jobs, I don't see it. I think we're actually going to need more education. I agree that the education isn't going to happen through a university, but we're going to need more education because we need to teach people a different set of tasks to be able to function in the new economy.
Well, I think the future of education is really simple. You'll have an AI that goes alongside you, and as you take on a job or a project, it'll say, here's the education, teaching, learning you need for that job or for that piece of work or for that project. And it'll just keep going on like that.
I disagree with you. I think this is a moment. The next decade is the moment of the revenge of the liberal arts.
Yeah.
Because I actually think critical thinking and curiosity and creativity and interpersonal relationships are going to be the things that distinguish us as human beings, as a member of a workforce that is a combined machine and human intelligence.
Well, we all have children. Do we all have children on the panel? Or?
I have twin boys.
Three girls. Don't let them meet my girls.
13-year-old.
Okay, I have three daughters. So I think what we're teaching our kids is an interesting question. I am, with my daughters, working on their doggedness and ability to add new skills, resiliency, self-reliance, and problem solving, and socialization as what's most important. My wife, who is an Ivy League, has at least 30 more IQ points than me. But she married me because I'm funny and good looking. And thank you.
At least funny.
That joke didn't land.
It got the funny, yeah, for sure.
She was very much in the camp of like, these kids, need to be like top STEM, whatever. And we've now like kind of met right in the middle, which is we have to get them interested in stuff, expose them to stuff, and get them into learning. And now with my twins, they are so into chess. And we got a chess tutor, and we have the chess app. And then they went to like robotics camp this week, and it's really interesting to watch them go to YouTube, which isn't AI powered yet. I mean, it is AI powered in that it is recommending to them now really virtuous stuff. But when YouTube is combined with AI, and I spoke to Sergey Brin about that. Hold on, I dropped a name again. Sergey is going to make AI and search in Gmail, in Docs, and in YouTube incredibly powerful. They're working on it right now. That could be like an incredible unlock. And I'm super, super excited about people not going into debt, because if we were sitting here and college was $10,000 a year, and you literally came out of it with less debt than your first year's salary, I don't think we'd have a problem with higher education. We'd think it was pretty cool. And by the way, if you live in Texas, UT is like 10 grand, and if you make under 100,000 in household income, it's free. And there's 50,000 students there. So like, it is possible to do this.
And by the way, these universities need to not be 4-year degrees. You get accepted to university, and it's a lifelong membership, right? Because they want to capture you and educate you through the world if they want to have relevance. One thing I disagree with is SpaceX going public.
Yeah, maybe they'll stay private forever.
I think they will. I think Starlink will go public.
Yeah, that seems logical.
Yeah, but Elon doesn't want to give control to the public shareholders on when he spends, $10 billion to go to Mars.
They would never approve Starship, as an example. Like, it's just...
No, it's too much of a hold. Yeah.
They would much rather go for profit.
I mean, Falcon 9 is the most extraordinary vehicle on the planet, and he will shut that down as soon as Starship begins.
Right, and they would say, just let's run this for profits. Yeah, is that a key point? Do we want to take a couple questions from the audience? Because I know somebody who wants to ask 2 questions, and...
Wait, I've got a couple of predictions to make.
Oh, go ahead.
So a few quick thoughts. One, I think this next 20, 30 years is going to dictate the next few centuries of humanity. I think we're at one of those inflection points that's once in a civilization. It's such a huge thing. Scarcity to abundance, all of the different mechanics around it. Second, I think we see over the next 20, 30 years the end of nation states, and we move to city-states as a natural governing principle. Because if you think about it, a city with vertical farms, solar energy, satellite internet, water extraction out of the atmosphere, why do you need a country? And I think we're going to start to see a granular...
For the military power.
Maybe, but you do much better as a smaller locale around this.
So that's very interesting, because we have right now this incredible federalism versus states' rights, and it keeps coming up. I think you're onto something.
And I think it's just going to keep getting more and more granular. Note the smallest countries did really well during the pandemic because they could move much more quickly. Just like big companies are going to have a big problem in the future, big countries are going to have a big problem in the future, and all are at a bit of a...
It's happening in China, right? How do you...
Exactly.
How do you deal with the middle class?
My last point would be that with the tsunami of 20 Gutenberg moments coming, every institution by which we run the world breaks in front of that. Education is broken, journalism is broken.
So what do you think, Salim, about the existence of these large companies in the audience? Will they exist here 10 years from now?
Will not exist. What will happen is...
Sorry, guys.
No. I don't mean that as a negative. There'll be a transition from operating company to platform to ecosystem. We've seen that in the internet world, right? Yahoo, Nokia, BlackBerry failed to become platforms, and they all failed. The big companies became platforms, and off they went. And so smaller entities, this is why Alphabet broke up. Google broke up into Alphabet. You can manage those things much more.
Innovation doesn't happen at large scale.
Exactly.
It's harder, certainly. Yeah, I would agree with that. And, we already have a piece of this. By the way, these are incredible. The thing I'm seeing is, the venture industry as a construct exists for when 2 or 3 people at a big company get so frustrated they can't ship.
Yeah.
They come to us. We're their escape hatch. We're their parachute. Right. And somebody said this recently, and it stuck with me. I'm not sure who said it on a podcast. But yeah, I think there's something to what you're saying. Yeah.
And I think what's we have to reinvent all of our institutions, which if you're an advisory, this is the biggest business opportunity in history, as we have to rethink how we run humanity at scale. I think the other magical thing that happens, because I tend to be a radical optimist around this, is that we end up being much, much more human. Already today, the most valuable colleagues and workers you have are the ones that are the most learning the fastest and are the most human. And I think that propagates more and more. And we spend a lot more time being rather than doing as a species.
Yeah, the one thing I want to pick on here, though, when you talk about the next decade setting the history of humanity for the next 100, 200 years, I think, I'd like to pick up the thread with your friend Ray Kurzweil here. Because I think the thing that is really interesting about part of his predictions is the way in which humans and machines are going to have a fusion going forward.
I was going to bring that up, right? So BCI, brain-computer interface, connecting your neocortex outside of your brain with the cloud. And there's a whole conversation of, are we going to couple with AI, or is AI going to just depart at a rate where it's hard to understand even what they're asking, saying, or doing? And I used to, Ray's prediction, he's got like an 84% accuracy in his prediction rates. If you go and look at Wikipedia, his prediction is high bandwidth BCI by 2033.
Explain what that is.
So
I'm asking on behalf of the audience. I know what it is.
Okay, of course you do. So the notion is, can I think in Google as the simplest format, right? Can I actually, so when I use my cell phone here, it's on the 5G network. When I want to do something complicated, it doesn't happen on my phone. The data goes from my phone, my voice, my video, audio, whatever it is, it goes to the cloud, it gets processed, and the answer comes back. So our brains, 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion synaptic connections, haven't really changed in 200,000 years. We're still running the same fundamental software we did back then. But if our brains wanted to get bigger, there's a problem. It's our mom's birth canal. We can't get bigger brains. But what if we could actually connect to the neocortex, the outer portion of the brain, think, and actually have that information head out to the cloud, get the answer, come back, and actually understand it. So, you all know of Neuralink, great, but there are probably at least 5 other companies I think are going to run circles around Neuralink. Yeah. And so are you going to accept one of these kinds of cognitive upgrades that allows you to connect and with all of the AI models out
People are going to go mad. I mean, if you think about it, like one of the best ways I was having...
In a good way or bad?
Well, I think we'll see is, I guess, the correct answer, because it will do both. Just like people are using ChatGPT for companionship now, and it feels unhealthy.
Which is sad. It is unhealthy.
It feels profoundly unhealthy. Like, how you apply the technology matters. And I was talking to Sam about the active mind and meditation, and he said, your mind spits out every permutation of every idea you have, and that's why we have anxiety as humans. That's why we're the dominant species. And you should look at it as a river. And as all those ideas flow down the river, you have the ability to just take a glass and just scoop up the idea you like, look at it, and if you want to drink it, you can, or you could throw it back in, but you don't have to be a slave to every thought happening. And when he told me that, it was a paradigm-shifting moment in my life. And that's when I started meditating. And that's where all the good jokes come from. When you meditate, they come to you. But in your world, when this thing gets hooked up, every crazy idea I have is going to go out and get acted on and be permutated. I mean, it really is wild when you think about that.
There's amazing science fiction written about this, right? And if I'm able to actually connect to the cloud, and all of you are connected to the cloud as well, there's this level of intimacy, right? Buddhists talk about being one with all. About imagine being able to connect at an intimate level with anybody else on the planet. And you're a collection of 40 trillion human cells. Every cell is alive, but you think of yourself as you. What if all of a sudden we're connected and we become conscious at a population level?
I think you missed your calling. You would have been a great cult leader.
I am a cult leader.
I mean, I'm serious. Like, you've got David Koresh level.
Thank you, buddy.
Ramez talks about this in his Nexus
the Nexus.
trilogy.
If you want a great science fiction trilogy, it's the Nexus trilogy about BCI and Buddhism and what it all means.
I love it.
It's set in the 2030s.
Brain-computer interface.
But I do think that the challenge that we're going to be facing over the next 10, 20 years is that this will cause us to have a new species emerge on the planet.
Yeah, we're speciating for sure.
And maybe 3, right? Maybe we'll have humans, machine intelligence, and this fusion nexus of a machine and a human. And we're going to have to navigate that as a global society to understand. I mean, think about inequality now, right? You have one group of humans that are super powered, and then you have we're all normal humans today. And how will that continue to separate out in terms of our abilities and our aspirations and even the ideas that we're capable of thinking?
I mean, imagine you're able to plug your consciousness into a Optimus or a Figure robot, see through its eyes, manipulate through it, and be able, there's been great stories written about all these things. This crazy stuff that we're talking about is what Ray talks about as this, equivalent to what happened in the last century happening in the next 10 years. And it's enabled by AI.
I'm really excited about this. But my ideas sometimes are incredibly self-centered. I just thought I would love to have that Optimus robot with me when I go skiing and send it ahead of me when I'm backcountry skiing in Japan to go first, because it's dangerous. And but it could find the good snow and I could follow it and it could be telling me what to do and improving my techniques. It's just wild to think.
Slow down here. I'm a ski instructor. This is really upsetting me. That was my retirement plan.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we go to questions?
Yeah, I think, as the 4 white old men on the panel, we should probably get
Who are you calling old, buddy?
Yeah, who are you calling?
I mean,
white?
how are you 10 years older than me and you look better?
Salim,
What are
is
you
that a white
injecting?
name?
Give it to me.
I will share all of my secrets with you.
I told Peter, I was like, you look great. You've lost weight. You've gained muscle. You're on top of your game. I want to know
I paid him for this.
You're doing off-menu. I want to know all of it. And if you know what Bezos is doing, I want that too. Okay? I know there's stuff off the menu. I'm seeing, does anybody know what's off menu? Because I'm getting all the on-menu stuff. I got the BPC Wolverine. Is that off menu or on menu? Anyway.
Peptides are on menu, yes.
All right, let's get some microphones
from
out.
the audience.
Any subject other than sports? No.
Yeah. No, you first. You are definitely going first.
Thanks.
Let me have it. You can ask 2 questions. I'm using my moderator.
Stand up.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a teacher.
And your microphone's not working yet? Give him a second. Test.
You know the saying, right? AI is easy, AV is hard.
Hello. Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
I'm a teacher.
What's your
yes.
name?
My name is Lindy.
Nice to meet you,
Lindy Bernard. So I teach a range of students, and I've been a teacher for, 25, 26 years. Right. My question is thank you. My question is very similar to the one that I asked yesterday, but I want to preface it by saying that even though I think you're all awesome, I also think in some ways you don't know what you're talking about.
No disagreement.
We're sure of that.
We're trying to figure this out. That's why we're here.
We agree.
And until you're standing in front of a class full of children, I don't think you will. So what I'm trying to say here is, what I would like to say here is that the idea that we get to decide what our children are going to do and how they're going to learn is wrong. The minute you gave them a computer or a device of any sort, and OpenAI created ChatGPT for free, we were done. As teachers, it's now about how do we make the most of this incredible technology and try and, as in quantum theory with the probability envelope, how do we get an envelope of influence where we can actually move these students into the kind of human beings that we want them to be? So my question is, yesterday I asked about The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. He has this incredible character, Nell, with this amazing book, The Primer That She Finds, or is given. And this becomes her
Mentor,
teacher,
guide.
mentor.
Yeah.
Where is that? And when is that? Because
I
that's
think
what I want.
ChatGPT introduced it today.
Did they really? Or are you being facetious?
No, they introduced their tutor product.
So I think when this happens is when we are wearing an additional layer of tech, right? So I want you to imagine Jarvis from Iron Man is the best visualization that I believe exists for AI in the future, where it is your enabler. One of the biggest challenges in school for me is if you're giving an 8th grade problems and they are allowed to use AI to solve those problems, it's meaningless. But if they're going after crazy graduate ideas and using tech to up-level their ambitions and what they're able to do, that's where we need to go. I think in general, one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is that humanity needs to up-level the we care about and we want to do.
So prioritization, motivation, these are very...
Dreaming bigger, going after moonshots, going after, the belief that there is no problem we cannot solve. The best way to become a billionaire is help a billion people, the world's biggest problems, the world's biggest business opportunities, and then saying to that child, listen, these tools, you've got them. What do you want to solve? Giving them this motivation that they can do anything, because we're democratized and demonetized these tools to billions of kids around the world. That's a new world. That's a new age. But we have to give them that positive vision. I'll just go one more rant. I'd love your thoughts on this. Most of Hollywood is giving us all these dystopian visions of the future. It sucks. Screw them, right? What we need is more Star Trek. We need visions of the future to aim for. Right? Without a vision, the people will perish. And all our visions of AI and robots and genetics and so forth are these crazy dystopian visions. We need, these positive visions that we focus towards.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jeremy Bentham proved that utopia doesn't sell. So, unfortunately, the storylines have to be negative.
This is the whole amygdala thing you point out in abundance, right? That we're driven by this amygdala that's constantly scanning for bad news. And this is why all the Hollywood movies are like that, because they grab that amygdala.
Or because the news media's job is to deliver your eyeballs to their advertisers, and we pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. I don't watch the news on TV. You couldn't pay me enough to have my brain infected by this dystopian news.
But just to go back to your education question, I think the power will come when we can create an emotional connection between a young child and a big problem that they want to get interested in solving. And they'll just go solve the world. I think the big challenge is getting us in the room out of the way of that, because that's where you get the barriers for them to think freely about what's coming.
Pulling on this thread and building on it, I think there's a feeling that this dystopian fear comes from the changing of institutions is really challenging for people. We need to look at this and really dream of what are the opportunities. And when I did this slide of the job displacement and job retirement, somebody said, so you are in the doomer camp. And I said, no, I'll waddle in there and I'll get in there and I'll feel really depressed about it. And then I realized, why can't we have 3 times the number of teachers and have school go from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and have people drop off their kids and have it on the weekends? And why not have nursery school for free and expand this, or have retraining? We have that in our ability as a society. What we need is leadership to do it. And if you look at leadership, and you look to politicians for leadership, you're going to be greatly disappointed. Our system has been totally captured. So therefore, it has to come from entrepreneurs or individuals like yourself. And I don't know if you ever considered being an entrepreneur, but it is the best platform for change in the world, I believe.
It's the only one.
I mean, perhaps.
It's the only segment of society that is willing to take a big risk to break the status quo and suffer the consequences if you fail.
I mean, I think entrepreneurship is the profession of the future. When an individual is empowered with extraordinary tools, they just need to have a purpose. We need purpose-driven lives.
Right, but is it Linda or?
Linde.
Lindy.
L-I-N-D-E. Yeah.
Got it. So, to Lindy's point, you have this extraordinary career in teaching. You've learned all this stuff. And you must have thought once or twice during that 20 years, there must be a better way. And if you did, you're a founder. And then all it takes is building the prototype. Now, are you a proficient full-stack developer?
So I do actually have a cool question. And what we do.
So if you do have that propensity, I would encourage you to take what you've learned and then go change the world. And one of the great things that's happening with this job displacement and with the towers falling, all these trusted institutions, is we get to make new ones. And it's really creative destruction. But then they don't build a platform to actually make the change. What these tools do is, if you could actually just speak to the computer and make the product or service with 3 or 4 people in less than $100,000 or $200,000,
and have it built and have it built. Launched the same day. That's a beautiful world.
It is. And
I think we should go to other questions.
Yes.
By the way.
You're right.
Yes.
I
Somebody
got one over here for you, Salim. Whoa.
there.
Hey, so I work with Peter. My name is Tyler. So I've been progress pilled. I believe that the world is headed towards this unfathomable abundance. So my question is, how do we solve the problems that come with abundance? All the problems that come when nations get wealthy. Like addiction goes up, mental health gets worse in some cases. How do we solve those problems?
Existential problems?
When we've looked at abundance and when civilizations or societies in the past, like the Mughals taking over India, the Romans conquering most of the world, we've seen they end up with 4 activities: food, art, music, and sex. Not in that order. And so you end up with a lot of radical self-expression by people, and that creates and fuels a whole new genre until the whole thing collapses. And the question is, how can you navigate that? And we don't know what's going to happen this time around as technology delivers radical abundance. As we demonetize, make tools available to everybody, how do we operate in the future? We're not sure. But
We do have abundance.
This is where our institutions become really important to kind of provide some sort of guardrails on that. And that's, I think, the work of the next 10, 20 years is to figure that out.
And just to be clear, we have abundance of plastics, microplastics, right? You guys have heard this, a credit card worth of plastic in your brain.
Somebody told me they were my testicles.
Yeah, well, they're probably there too. But,
No, Tim Ferriss just did a podcast where he's like,
Yeah.
there's like 1 billion microplastics in our...
but I'm more worried about the microplastics in my brain than the
Yeah.
testicles. I've done the reproduction thing.
Now you know our priorities.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, other questions? Let's move on.
But it's carbon abundance, it's obesity abundance, it's all of this.
But look, I think the other thing that we're underplaying in your description of things that societies resolve to is that those societies had very limited reach to be able to do bigger and greater things. And I think one of the things that technology gives us is the ability to do bigger and greater things.
Absolutely.
Become, for example, a multiplanetary species, and even go beyond that to the stars. And I think there's going to be an enormous number of things that inspire us as human beings and as future hybrid machine human intelligences to go and achieve far beyond simply satisfying our base needs. I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and self-actualization, I think, is going to take on an entirely
So
new meaning for
interesting.
This
us.
is my
You bring-
comment earlier about being more than doing.
Can I,
You end up in that mode.
there's a study that was done in the 60s. It was called the Universe 25 experiment. And I closed my next book, We Are As Gods, with this. And a psychologist basically built a utopia for rats. There was all the food, all the space, everything you need. There was no scarcity of anything. The rat population grew rapidly, and then it basically fell off and died. If there's no challenge,
No purpose.
no purpose, you're screwed. And so one of the single most important things, again, a prediction as we head into the 2030s and 2040s, is the critical nature for us to create a Star Trek universe, not a Wall-E universe. We need to have purpose. We need to dream bigger than ever before. Otherwise, we're really screwed as a species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
that's
we're
right.
having...
Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think I have my finger on the pulse, so when I talk to young folks who are starting companies, there's a really interesting movement called FIRE. I don't know if you've heard of it, Financial Independence, Retire Early. Young people are looking at the capitalistic democratic system and saying, yeah, that's interesting, I'm going to hack it. And the way they perceive hacking it is getting enough wealth in a certain number of years to then have control of their destiny. And now that's because financial independence is the hurdle now. But if you think, well, we have such an abundance in society, and water is essentially free, energy is essentially free, which means food is essentially free, and people can, if we solve housing, which is a pernicious one here because of regulatory capture, you start, and those are all part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, shelter at the base, right, and food, and shelter, and then belonging, I guess, is the next one up, if I remember. And that's a very interesting moment, because then how do you find purpose? And that is, purpose and motivation are third rail topics, because my perception now is you can learn any skill you want. I could never get into an Ivy League school when I was graduating, and I always wondered what happened there. And now I was feeling like I didn't understand macroeconomics enough. And so I typed it into Google, and I found 2 courses in YouTube. MIT's and Stanford's were available. They had like 50,000 to 150,000 views on each one. And I said to myself, this is extraordinary. These were held in a secrecy for hundreds of years. And now they're available free, but yet nobody's watching them. It also turns out that macroeconomics is like alchemy. None of these people know what they're talking about. They're
They
all
have no idea
guessing,
what they're talking-
which was a great revelation because they kind of said that in the second one. It's like, we don't know what we're talking about. We're just trying to figure it out. It's like a weather system. But
Oh, here's a prediction for the future. We'll stop using GDP as a measure of success.
happiness is what I think we should do.
There we go.
Happiness and
Something
joy.
like that.
Bhutan.
Wow, this is getting positive.
Any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, it's Richard Boyd with Optimism. I do work with Lindy as well. I'm a serial entrepreneur, sold multiple companies. I sold a very successful game company. That's when I first met you, Jason. I think it was a South by
Games,
Southwest. Yeah, and I worked on a DARPA program called Cognitive Coupling, so if any of you want to talk about that later, if you stick around for drinks, I'd love to do that. But I do agree with about 80% of everything you've talked about, Jason.
Great.
One thing that sticks in my craw a little bit is,
Please.
and I know from talking with some of my colleagues here at KPMG and elsewhere that we're all deeply concerned about the need for good leadership right now because
Yep.
we're in a disruptive age. When I talk to people like you were name dropping, Saul Drop, Reid Hoffman invested in my last company. I talked to Joichi Ito, people like Vince Cerf on the People-Centered Internet, Ray Kurzweil, and now all that. And I think we should all agree that there are certain endeavors in human, existence today that need, that should only be left to the hopefully benevolent governance of, government, like, the prosecution of war. I don't know what you think about, what police do, interstate commerce maybe. I would argue education and healthcare as well. I know that's a big argument. But deregulation, man, I'm worried about that, leaving that in the profit motive realm of the techno bros.
But you know what I find is that people of privilege like us, or some, we worry about, I think, the poor people, and we think that they don't have self-agency and that they will not be able to handle this change. I think they might be uniquely qualified to handle it. And when they get these tools, I'm hiring young people, 18, 19, 20 years old, who didn't go to college or dropped out, and they have that dog in them. And they're better than the
They're
elite
entrepreneurs.
kids. Yeah, they're better than the elites. And so I in my little framework for investing, I said, find me the people who dropped out of school, which is an obvious one, but also the people who just built things and did it because they had the motivation to do it. And almost universally, they're not the kids of rich parents. They're the kids who had the struggle, immigrant parents, poor parents, broken homes, you name it. Find me a broken marriage, an abusive parent, I will find you a great entrepreneur.
Well,
It's the truth.
Google researched this, and they found that one successful trait to be a successful Google employee was over like 70,000 people that have worked at Google was you had huge difficulty in character stress early in your life, and you had to overcome it.
Yeah, so
That was the
that's the
predictor.
thing I worry about.
I think about doing
your point.
do a disservice to my kids by giving them too easy a life.
Yeah.
Right.
I got to them up a little bit.
Lock them
more.
out of the house.
I don't
we,
know.
We have to do that. Agree.
But I did, Peter, I do think you should stop hitting your kids. I don't know, the corporal punishment.
We have time for a last question. Yes, ma'am.
Make it a good one.
So I'm the other teacher here. I'm a law professor, and I teach
really
at a public school where most of the students due to scholarships are paying about $13K per year in tuition. So I think there is a good opportunity for public schools, and especially public universities, to play a role in helping to educate the future. Personally, I'm not on board with the AI is going to take over education, in part because if you look around the room today, why are we all here instead of talking to a chatbot for 2 days about the content of the subject matter that we're seeing here? It's because it's beneficial to have human connection when we're engaged in learning. And you also see, children engaged in connection with the chatbot end up less happy, less engaged, less motivated than they would be when coming to places like this that kids get to experience.
By the way, I think you might have misunderstood. I don't think anyone here thinks that education in itself is a bad thing or that human interaction is a bad thing. In fact, actually, I'm sure we're all in favor of education and human interaction. I think what our critique is that the institutions are broken.
Yeah.
And these tools are going to allow our kids to up-level their ambitions. Right, so here's my biggest problem. In high school, we're not using the tools anywhere enough, and these kids are going to enter the workforce. They're going to enter university, and be smack in the face with a completely different way of doing this. It's like when I went to school and I got A, B's, and C's, mostly A's. Yes, I did pretty well, but I go then to the business world, and there's no A's being given out. right? It's all about, what can you build? It's the economics. And so this disconnect between the way we measure kids' progress during school and the rest of the world.
I'm wondering, as a teacher, thank you for your service, could that 13,000 be 1,300 a year? And do you have a strategy for doing that?
I think with law schools in particular, that number is pretty much the lowest it could possibly go.
13,000.
Yeah, we run it extremely lean, and part of that is because law professors are generally paid comparable to what they might earn in the private marketplace. Much lower than that, but more than university professors of other types. And so I think if you're talking about you have 60 students in a classroom and each student has 6 teachers per year, that roughly nets out to barely anything left for salaries and administration. And I think roughly 6 teachers a year is appropriate.
Can the administration be replaced?
Or eliminated?
Currently at my law school, we've reduced the administration so that we basically only have about 3 people doing administration, and those people are also doing double duty as teachers as well. So I think 13K is about the minimum you can go and still provide salaries. We do incorporate AI and things.
I'm going to just challenge you.
Yeah.
As a homework assignment, if you choose to. If you could come up with a 2-page memorandum, a deal memo, we call it in our business, of a way to do it for 10 times less, I will fund it. I'll fund it. And I'll just open that up to anybody, because I think the opportunity is there are a group of people who self-directed could maybe could do some amount of this work on their own, do it virtually, come together in very low cost environments. And if you do that, that would be so disruptive that you could change the world. And that's what I'm obsessed with. I have one company we invested in called Brilliant.org. Has anybody used that in their schools, Brilliant.org? Oh, wow, there's like 2 people. That's great. They created a self-directed math and science. It's kind of like Khan Academy, but gamified. And I do think that if we can get more people trying to do outrageous, ambitious things, because you're in the system, you're so close to it, you think 13,000 is the lowest. And Peter and I are looking at it and we don't buy it. We're like, we can think of 10 ways to lower it in half immediately. So I just want to challenge you to do that. And if you do, I'll fund it.
All right. We're running out of time. We're getting the curtain call here. Quick comment. If anybody you want to continue the conversation about the bigger, more esoteric aspects of what is consciousness, meaning of life, philosophy, metaphysics, tonight, late at night, we're going to have a conversation over wine.
Salim does the meaning of life. He does it at my Abundance Summit every year. It's amazing. It's worth your time.
I'm in.